Oh my God! Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
What's going on today?
Another normal Wednesday night, Eric, in Los
Yes.
Angeles with this amazing heat wave.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay. And what happens on a normal Wednesday night? I'm gonna tell you what happens. We're gonna bring you some shit. That's what we do. That's what this show was all about. Bringing you some shit. Some of you may know it really well. Some of you may just kind of know it. Some of you know it like so. Well, we're gonna bring it like we know it, and we're gonna bring it with the depth and reality that we want to bring to you.
Well said, Eric. Thank you for that.
Thanks, buddy. What do we got, Jorge? Tell the people what we got. Okay, today's topic. What do we got?
So tonight we're going to talk about Blackstone, aka BlackRock, and the deal that they struck a couple years ago with Ancestry.com. Whoa, interesting, right? So have you heard of Blackstone, Eric?
Yes, I have heard of Blackstone. Multinational, large corporation.
Large corporation.
Large corporation.
Large corporation. One of the leading global investment companies in the world.
Yes, they have a very diverse portfolio of some things that you will find very disturbing.
Exactly. And what they've been doing in the last few years is they've been purchasing a bunch of property. And what they do is they outbid families, buy the homes outright, and rent it back to those families or families that can't afford a house in the area,
Okay.
keeping Joe Schmoes like you and I from ever owning a house and building equity. Now, why would they do this, Eric? Well, I don't know, George. Why would they do that?
Well, I don't know, George. Why would they do that?
Money and control, Eric. Money and control.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
And I know that there's some charts out there, and I believe that this is one of those companies I saw that has like hundreds of little corporations under their umbrella corporation where they're coming across as if they're a smaller company, but they're really part of this larger company.
That's the game. They play it. They play it well.
It's kind of scary if you think about it.
If you'd like to know more about Blackstone, there's a link right down below that you can click on.
Links are good, and so is Hazy IPA.
So Blackstone acquired Ancestry.com for $4.7 billion.
Why
That's a
so
lot
much
of money, right?
for something like that? Think about it. Think
Exactly.
About that shit. What
So
do they
they're
have
up to something, right? And they've been working really hard to control a major part of the housing market. And like all corporations, they want more. And what do they got to do? Well, the next step for them is to buy DNA data.
Okay, so what you're saying is they want to get all this DNA information because they can refine the marketing approach they can take to certain types of people based on their genetic profile. Maybe there's like a signature in their personality. There's a signature of likes and dislikes, tastes and not tastes by certain genome profiles, right? So they can create a profile for marketing and how to sell things and how to make things that will most appeal to a certain type of person, right? Based on their genetics, is what you're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly. Oh my God, Eric, you are the master at this. It's like you've done this before.
Who, me?
Plenty of times.
Who,
yeah.
me?
So guess how many DNA genomes Blackstone owns now?
I'm afraid to ask.
18 million. What are they going to do with this?
Well, a bigger question is where is all that gonna go, and what other hands can it get into, and what can it become?
And now that they own it, guess what? It can go to the highest bidder. It's like your cell phone. Your number gets out, it gets sold, right? And suddenly you get multiple calls a day, people asking about your extended car warranty. Your DNA data gets sold, then they do with it as they please. Then, like you mentioned, specific marketing tools are to target you specifically. There are 4 types of warfare. It's cyber warfare, narrative warfare, economic warfare, genome warfare. These companies that do the DNA sequencing out in China, and specifically the biggest one in China is BGI. They do most of the genome sequencing for the US. There's a major company in China called BGI, and they do the majority of the genome sequencing for the US. Now, how is it that one big company in China gets to do this? Well, they lower their costs and they say, hey, this is what we have to offer, right? There are companies in the US that can do it for $1,400. Then China comes around and says, I can do this for $1,200.
Try like 800 or 600.
Or probably even 800 or 600.
Less.
Exactly. So now BGI and other companies that work with them on the back end, they all work together to create products that are specifically marketed towards certain people.
Yeah, certain profiles.
Exactly. There was an article that showed that this company, BGI, was working with the Chinese military. And you know what they were doing? They were building weapons against enemy soldiers. They were modifying their DNA to make them stronger.
Using things to go against their weaker DNA, right?
Exactly. And that's the whole point, right? They know so much about you. They know your weaknesses. They know your history. They know what makes you tick. They know what makes you nice and hard.
Hey, I'm wondering when they're going to create the perfect genetic profile for all the fun stuff, the pleasure stuff. But I guess that's marketing, right?
I guess
that's
so.
How they market it. They market, hey, we can enhance your happy fun time.
Exactly. And well, can you imagine like what would happen if you were on the receiving end of this attack? Like, what would that look like, right? Because your DNA at the end of the day is like a QR code. That's the goal of this whole thing, is to be able to track you, to keep tabs on you with your DNA. It's similar to like when China had all the cameras and they have that social rating thing. Remember, like in Black Mirror, they have that.
Yep.
And that's being used, and that's been used.
Well, that's Instagram right now. That's Instagram and TikTok right now. And if you don't make it, you're like, oh, I'm left out of the crowd. Nobody loves me. But then it's going to break out into the actual physical social, like the Black Mirror episode.
Exactly. And so these companies that are out in China, I mean, they can do anything with your DNA. I mean, yeah, I guess it doesn't really affect you right now, but it could affect your kids. It could affect your grandchildren, right? I mean, it's not a problem now, but it will become a problem. If you really think about it, with your DNA data being sold to just anybody.
Exploited. Basically, totally freaking exploited.
Exactly. What can they do? They can tie you to a crime. They can search your DNA history, like some kind of directory, right? They can dig up your dirty secrets. They can tie it in with your health. I mean, all the medications.
Yeah, it's absolute control. The pandemic thing wasn't a sheer attempt to show that force. I mean, imagine when they're going to get it down to a level where they actually have control over all your genetics, as opposed to rewriting it to fight a, illness.
There's another company called Family Tree that's another at-home DNA test. They admitted to sharing the genetic data of their customers to the FBI, the CIA, and possibly more. So if this Family Tree is doing it, I mean, who's to say other companies aren't? It's against your will. I mean, they own it at this point, right? Like, you paid them to find out what you are. I mean, if you didn't know already, you're a little bit of everything. We all have one common ancestor. You don't really have to send your DNA, your spit,
but I'm
to
sure
these companies.
I'm sure that it's so freaking sophisticated now that they can actually isolate what percentage of how much of this and how much of that, and like you're basically almost like an investment portfolio or a design portfolio or any portfolio that says, in a pie chart shows you're this much this, you're this much that, and this much of this and this, and all these different categories. Like personality traits, genetic diseases. I'm sure they've got all kinds of charts to like spell it all out, and they can just get really deep on it.
But what's the point?
Scary.
But what's the point of all that? Like, what are you going to gain from that? Like, oh, I'm 2% black and I'm 1% Asian. Oh my God,
we're not going to gain anything from it. But
they do. I mean, and that's the thing. You're spending money and you're putting your trust in this company that's like, yeah, we'll keep everything a secret.
Yeah, right. That's the user side of it. But on the owner side of it, which is the corporation, what's to me what's freaky about it is they will have absolute control over who you are and your profile, to the point that there's zero privacy. None. It's done. It's finished. That's it.
Love, sex, drugs, alcohol, pills, crack cocaine.